Welcome to Aim in Practice, where we explore the multifaceted world of wellness and the unique journeys of those who have dedicated their lives to it. My name is Jess Reynolds, and today I am joined by Rudel. She's a powerhouse in the world of acupuncture and business coaching. So if you've ever wondered how to grow your business without losing your sanity, this is the episode for you. I know I've wondered that often. Anna's here to unveil the mystery. She's the brain behind Lokahi Acupuncture, which is a top-notch acupuncture clinic in San Francisco Bay Area, and she's a mentor to many, including myself. And in this quick-paced chat, we'll uncover how Anna juggles being a really successful acupuncturist, as well as managing a thriving and growing clinic and coaching aspiring entrepreneurs, and the secrets to her success. So with that, let's jump in. Alright, so before we jump into today's episode, let's give a shout out to our sponsor, Jane, a clinic management software and EMR. Whether you're just starting to do your research or you've been contemplating switching your software for a while now, the Jane team understands that the process, well, it can feel intimidating. That's why their goal is to provide you with all of the onboarding resources you need to make the switch as smooth as possible. Jane offers a personalized call to set up your account, a free date import, and a wide variety of online resources to get you up and running quickly. And if you need a helping hand along the way, you'll have unlimited phone, email, and chat support, which is all included with your Jane subscription. Now, I gotta tell you, I've switched EMR softwares 4 times now. We won't get into why, but I've done it. And it really can be a nightmare. But when I made the switch to Jane, I can tell you from firsthand experience, it really was the easiest transition imaginable. And I finally feel like I have a system that does all the things I need, and it's all in one place. So if you're interested in learning more, book a one-on-one demo at jane.app/switch. And if you decide to switch, don't forget to use the code AIM1MO. That's AIM, the number 1, MO. At the time of sign up to receive a 1-month grace period on your new Jane account. Well, Anna, welcome. And again, thank you very much for taking the time to chat with me today. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. After going through your bio and some of the things that you've done with your practice, I think this will be a very fun and interesting conversation. So I would really like to start out in the same way that I always do, and that's just to get to know you just a little bit more, and for my listeners to sort of get an idea of you, your background, and really what got you into the medicine that you practice. So let's start with your story. Be as long-winded as you want or as short and brief. It's totally up to you.
Well, firstly, thanks for having me on your show, Jess. I really appreciate it. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. So it's a long story. I'm in California in the Bay Area now, and I came to Chinese medicine via Japan, which is where I'm teaching on the JET program for 3 years. And it's there that I really was trying to discern whether to become an acupuncturist or a teacher. And in the end, I decided to go into East Asian medicine on the basis of research. It's a really boring story, and I didn't have some major health concern that pivoted me towards this career trajectory. But think, given my degree in social or cultural anthropology in the UK, and then going to live in Japan, I was predisposed towards that way of thinking. And so when I researched them, it made the most sense to me. So from Japan, I came to the Bay Area in California and started my degree in 1999, which ages me a little. So when I was starting business out of the second bedroom of my home, I think one of the main things is that when I was in acupuncture school, I had no idea of what I was going to do when I graduated. I had no idea what I was getting into, and the fact that we actually had to build a business after school became a bit of a shock to the old system. And so when I moved to San Jose and started the practice, we were very lucky to have a SCORE, so the Senior Corps of Retired Executives branch within walking distance to the house. And I used to trot off every day down to score with my business plan, and an executive would sit with me and help me build it. And I remember having all these grand ideas of integrative clinics and all the practitioners in this beautiful space and lots of gongs going. It was just going to be fantastic. And I remember Elik was his name, looked at me in complete exasperation one day, and he took his Bic and he scrawled across the top of my business plan, "Focus," in capital letters. And I still have that piece of paper to this day. And what that experience taught me was I really needed to scale down my ideas and make them sustainable and practical. And he also taught me to set small goals. And so what I went ahead and did was set the goal of, I think my first goal was 5 patients in a week, and it had to be consecutive for 4 weeks in order to achieve the next level. So I'd done 5 patients every week for 4 weeks consecutively, and that was a dinner out, which in those days, I didn't really have much money after acupuncture school. And then, what was the next one? The next one was, once I got to 20 patients for 4 consecutive weeks, then I would look for an office space. And a chiropractic friend offered a second room to me that I could rent short term. And it was that room that provided me the springboard to then move into a 3 treatment room clinic.
I really, really appreciate the focus. I've come to call it the dream. Just that's what I call it, because pretty much every practitioner I talk to, well, maybe not every, but a good chunk of them have the dream, which is opening a wellness center, right, with a whole bunch of different practitioners and like a beautiful coffee bar and like this big, huge, elaborate dream. And then I talk to a whole group of other people, because I'm pretty big in the yoga community as well. And then there's the yoga dream, where it's like this retreat area where it's like 200 acres of sprawling forest, and there's a yurt, and everybody's got the dream. And I can't count how many people I've talked to with this dream. And you're right. It's like, this is a beautiful dream, but you got to focus. You got to start somewhere sustainable, somewhere where you can actually make baby steps. And I think that's where it falls apart a lot, right? Is we get stuck in this cycle of the end result of what you want, and then get so flabbergasted as to where do we actually begin with this dream. So to have somebody, to have a mentor, just be like, okay, slow down and focus, and give you these incremental steps. Like, man, that is like gold. That's super valuable.
Absolutely. He was the beginning of the business. There's no doubt in my mind. Yeah.
And then once you started your business, was it just you? I mean, you said you moved into eventually, so the progression was from the home to the Cairo to a 3 clinic or 3 office space. Was it still just you? Were you operating multiple rooms, or did you bring on a couple other practitioners at that point?
So once I moved into the 3 treatment room clinic, at that point, I realized I was paying for space that I wasn't using. And it was very nice to have the space, but I wasn't using it. So I sent out possibly the worst job ad in the history of job ads. It was a job ad out of complete exasperation. One night I was tired, I was booked to capacity, and so I just sent this terribly worded Facebook ad, I think it was, or something to the school. And my first employee came on after that, and she wanted to work weekends and Fridays, and that I knew I never wanted to work a Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. So we brought her on. She was my first, and then a second one at that location. So then there were 3 of us. And from
So if you could
there,
go
we
back
springboarded.
and you can talk to past you, you see you sitting there just totally exasperated. You've got a Facebook ad open or whatever it is, and you could just sit down on the couch beside past Anna and give her just this one little nugget of advice in that moment. What do you think you would tell her?
I think I would say, write down what you need. Like, really check in with yourself. What do you need? We know what the problem is. The problem is you're booked, you have space that you're paying for that's not being used. But what do you need? Who do you want to share your space? as opposed to just putting a blanket sort of statement, I have this clinic space open. And the other thing, Jess, is I didn't realize I was going to employ somebody. I didn't
Right.
know what I was doing in that moment. It ended up being another springboard moment.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't know what I was doing. Nobody else at that point was hiring, or certainly nobody in my sphere was hiring. This is now 2004, 2005. And so there was no template, there was no model. There were no business contracts that I
Mm-hmm.
could pull from. And so I made it up as I went. And yeah, if I sat down next to Anna again, I would probably go back to ELIC and say, how do I do this? What am I doing right now?
Yeah. That's such an important part of the growth process. There's certainly a group of practitioners, and I've realized that about myself, right? I owned a clinic at some point in time, fairly early in my practice, and I realized fairly quickly that wasn't for me. I didn't enjoy it. It didn't fill me with that zest. So now I'm just as happy as a clam, operating out of that second room. Well, it's my basement in the house, right? So there's a practitioner like me that I'm just happy with me, with my practice. Of course, there's the other businesses which I have a couple of employees, but the process of actually hiring other practitioners, and I've talked to a few other business owners who struggle with this, like hiring the right person to fit. And that part that you said about like really figuring out what you need, I think that's really important, right? Because oftentimes it's just,
Mm-hmm.
I have a room, there's a gap here and a gap here, and I need to fill it because of money, of whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And then, it's just hiring warm bodies, right? The just anybody who will fill the space and help pay the bills. But to me, that seems
Mm-hmm.
like a
Mm-hmm.
recipe for potential disaster. So, what are your thoughts on that? Like
Yeah.
you've given the advice of filling, identifying what you need, but what else do you have for either hiring the first people or maybe for people who are a little bit later on and they own their clinic and they are in that like pulling their hair out phase of why can't I just find somebody to fill the role and stay? What's your advice
Mm-hmm.
for that?
Well, I think we're under a misguidance if we think that our employees are going to stay. We want to be there as long as they are comfortable and for as long as they work within the business. But what I've learned actually is that life happens, they move on, and we are as business owners and clinic owners, we have to find our comfort spot of flexibility. So we have to be able to accommodate where their specialties are, what their superpowers are, how they
Mm-hmm.
communicate, how they like to be managed. And also the fact that, this is not a forever relationship. We're not in a marriage. And so I've found, as I have employed many acupuncturists now, that actually when I am a leader rather than a thumbs a manager putting the thumb screws on and trying to micromanage
Right.
every detail, when I lead the company, I do much, much better. So
Mm.
to lead, you have to have vision and you have to be confident in what you're doing. I frequently say during staff meetings, if it was just me in the acupuncture office, I might make a different decision. But this decision is for all of us because we all need to be on the same page about this.
Right.
And what's good for one is not necessarily good for 11.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a really interesting distinction that you made there. I mean, there's such an interesting position that practitioners play as well, because there's the practitioner hat, and I would love to talk to you about your transition from taking off the practitioner hat to don the leader hat more permanently, right? Because there is that part, right? We've invested a huge amount of our time and money into becoming a practitioner, and then there's the business owner part. Um, but then there's this strange combination of like business owner, entrepreneur, manager, leader. So the distinction you made between being the manager and the leader, that's really interesting. And what do you see as like the difference in those words? Like how would one embody the difference between leading and managing?
Mm. So I think earlier on in my practice, earlier on as I was learning to employ other acupuncturists, I kept saying things like, well, it's my name. The people are coming to my name. I've created this. And so I would want practitioners to practice in a way that was similar to mine. I found myself wanting carbon cutouts of me, which was not conducive to their growth, nor to expanding the offerings of the company. And so once I switched from that, which is, I think, very basic managing, I don't even know that it's managing, Jess, to be honest. It was learning on the go. Then once I realized, okay, these people need leadership, they need boundaries, they need to know what to do in certain situations. We need to have regular staff meetings. I'm on the hook for these things, i.e. setting up whatever it is, payroll, HSA, whatever it is. That's my job. And then we need to do reviews and all these things.
Mm-hmm.
Once you settle into that, then there becomes a stage at which you decide, okay, well, I am on the hook for all of those things, but really where my value comes in is where I'm leading the company and I'm asking others within the company to do the details, to sit down with the employees and make sure that they're happy, or that they understand the manual, or that the manual is actually there with updated information, that they are understanding how to access their paychecks, all those things I can actually have somebody else do. But where my value comes in now is in vision and overarching goals of the company.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds very much like the arc that is laid out in the E-Myth Revisited. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that book, but yeah, right.
Yes.
Is shifting from the technician to manager to entrepreneur, and sort of identifying where you best fit in those three different places. And it really sounds like the more entrepreneur visionary part is something that feels pretty comfortable for you, right? You got this vision, and even reflecting on your first story, right? You're out of school and you're just figuring out, what do I do? It's like all ideas and vision and how to build. And I talk to some people and they're just like, there is no vision. It's like, I just want to be in the treatment room. Like that's all I see. It's just me and the clients, right? So I think that's a pretty important part as us as practitioners, because I think some of us, maybe we get lost in the idea of what it means to be a wellness practitioner, because it makes sense that being a wellness practitioner is you're one-on-one in a room with your client or whatever it might be. But I, for one, still see what you do as being a wellness practitioner, because ultimately that's what you're still doing. You're still facilitating the wellness of clients, but just from a totally different perspective, and maybe one that is more suitable to your particular set of skills and what you're more suited for, right? Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think, there's no judgment around whether you're that person that
No.
finds their creative outlet in the leadership stuff, or, creating these clinics, or whether you're the person that really enjoys being with the patients and doing that aspect of things. I was coaching with someone just this week, and she's like, I have no interest in growing a business. I'm happy when I'm with my patients. And absolutely, hats off.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I find that kind of balance, right? Like I really love the clinical work, but I have a pretty low tolerance for it. Like I max out about 10 before I really start to feel affected, and it starts to affect other parts of my life. So I realize like I like that part, but it's not my everything. So I think that's also part, is understanding that there are other things that one needs to do as a practitioner to sort of manage their own energy sources, because it is very demanding energetically, sometimes physically, depending on the practitioner we're talking about, right? When you work with your staff who kind of fall into that category of they just want to be in the room with the clients, how do you help them find that balance? Because as a leader, I think that kind of feels to me part of the role, right, of making sure that the staff and people you have working for you are doing good, right? So how do you
Yeah.
work with your staff and the people you work with?
That's a really good question there, Jess, because I find myself doing a lot of coaching around that. And actually, when I hire practitioners, I'm often putting the stoppers on them. They want to be in. I have a new employee right now, and she said, I want 40 hours a week. I'm young, I'm able, and I want 40 hours a week, 40 patient hours. And I said to her, absolutely not. I'm so sorry. I would love to have you on board, but I am not putting you on for that number of hours, not because we don't have the availability. I could make that work, but that is an unsustainable number of hours from what I'm asking for you to do. You're on the hook for seeing your patients, for following up. You're doing treatment plans. You're doing social media videos with Naomi. You're doing all these things, and I need you to be here 110% when you're here, not sort of petering out on Friday afternoon because you've just seen goodness knows how many patients. So I do spend quite a bit of time talking with each practitioner and making sure that we're as close as we can to the sweet spot. Another story is a practitioner. She's been with me 7 years, I think. And I walked into the kitchen and she was just looking pale and exhausted. And in her eyes, there was nothing there. And I had been talking with my coach about, I need someone to really help support the practitioners. And she had been at the top of my mind. And I took the opportunity and took her back to my office and said, look, sit down. And she said she thought I was going to fire her in that moment because she looked tired, which of course I'm not. And I just said, I see the burnout. I see it on you. I don't think that what you're doing right now is sustainable. Can we transition you into some sort of admin or support or leadership role, at least part-time? And she cried in relief because somebody had seen the burnout there. And, starting in November, she's going to be full-time. So we're very excited about that.
That genuinely gives me goosebumps because I've worked in a few different wellness centers and clinics, and I can't say I've ever encountered a primary business owner or the owner of the clinic or the center that had that awareness of who was working there and could actually see that burnout. I mean, I see oftentimes the other side of the spectrum where it's like, we need to book you more, we need to get you more clients. The kind of the driving force is more. So to hear a story where it's like, maybe let's back off and find a way to support you, to me that seems like such a more sustainable way to run a clinic, because then you're not having the constant turnover of burnout, and you're not going to build the reputation as the clinic that's going to push you to the end, right? So it seems like that's the sustainable way to manage and maintain staff.
Right. Absolutely. That really is my primary way of managing, is to have these check-ins constantly, try and understand where they are, where my practitioners are, and how we can adjust as necessary.
So I'd like to kind of come at one issue from two different directions, and that's this idea of hiring in general. And the two directions are you as the individual hiring, and I've got a list of questions that I'm very curious about, but then there's the opposite side. It's like people who are looking for a place to be hired, for looking for a clinic. And ultimately the goal here is to find the perfect fit between the practitioner and the clinic. So starting with you as the clinic owner, what are some things that you really do in the process of identifying if somebody is the right fit?
Yes, so that's been an evolution over the years, where I started with a very scripted conversation with the applicant and many questions that we would ask. And then I went completely the opposite direction and was quite silly and open and frivolous almost about it, just to try and bring them out of their shell. And then more recently, I've been a lot more thorough, I would say, and a lot more open and a lot more honest. I think because, back to the previous question, I've really sat down and thought about, what do I want? What do I need? And where is my flexibility? Because everybody who applies is going to need some flexibility. So what we usually do is we start with a phone call or a Zoom call, and then I leave that fairly open. I leave it to a conversation. I want to tell the applicant about who we are and what we're looking for, but I also want to get a sense of who they are and how they've prepared for this moment and what they're looking for and where they are in their practice and in their life. So once that's happened, then we tend to then I'll have another interview with them. I'll try and do an in-person, although that's not always possible. And then I bring the other practitioners in. I pick about 3 practitioners, and they interview the candidate. And that's critical. It's critical because they want buy-in. Well, my practitioners need buy-in to the applicant. In the past, I made the hire and then I brought this person into the office, and that did not work out well because I hadn't done my work on the back end. I hadn't brought my crew in to the process. I thought I was doing them a solid by keeping them out of what is quite a challenging process, to say the least. But in fact, I was undermining my goal and undermining their confidence in me. So I had to create that buy-in, and we do that by having at least 2, if not 3 practitioners interviewing the candidates. And then we have a feedback meeting where the practitioners and I kind of go over what the thoughts are, and then we likely invite the candidate back again and make a final decision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that process. As you were describing it, particularly the part where you got your team in, is a few things that came into my awareness, and one is that it's a team, right? It's not you and your staff. It's a team of people, and you're the leader of that team of people. So it would be like just bringing in a new team player and having no idea if they're going to mesh with the team. And well, I think there's a lot of overlap between a wellness business and other types of businesses. Every business is unique, and I think what's unique about our industry in specific is how intimate and, I guess, energetic and potentially emotional it is. Like, people are coming out of the treatment room, both clients and practitioners, and they can be in some pretty raw, vulnerable states. So having a team that can be supportive and in tune with that, I think, would be very valuable. So having somebody out of tune with that and doesn't have the vibe, or it doesn't match the tone of the team in general, that could be pretty devastating. So to hear like you bring the team in, that's pretty unique. I like that. That's amazing.
Yeah. Well, I have a good crew who are invested in making sure that we all continue working together.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what about the other side, right? So as practitioners who are looking to find a clinic, and of course there's the fresh out of school, I just need a job, I got to start, paying the student loans back, I just want to work, right? And that's one thing. I mean, I'd like to hear your opinion about that as well. Mine is, when you're out of school, just get the hours, because you don't really know what you're looking for. But how do you suggest maybe that people sort of find a clinic that feels right for them as well? Or perhaps what questions or inquiries or steps they can take to make sure that they fit? Because I see the interview process as both ways in a professional setting. They're offering you something, you're offering them something, so there has to be an amicability there. So what would you say to the opposite side?
Yes, I've just had quite a bit of experience with this, actually, Jess. I feel quite qualified to answer this question. So I think for those who are just coming out of school, I think there's a humbling to the process in many ways. Do your research. Know who the company is that you're applying to. Know who the interviewer is. Know what the going rate of pay is. All these things are critical. I can't tell you how many interviews where the new graduate comes in with a number in mind. They're expecting sort of 60, 70% of the gross income or whatever of what they bring in. And there are many expectations. And unfortunately, to an interviewer or to somebody who's been doing this a while, it does come off often as a little entitled. And so that's a big turn off to the interviewer, just as a heads up there. So I think the the number one thing would be to really do your research, know who you're applying for, and in this day and age where you can really just press a button and your resume gets sent off, and somebody might pick up on that. I picked up on quite a few of them, and then through the interview process, realize this person actually has no idea who I am or what company they're applying for, and that's an instant no. So it would be the same advice to anybody in any field applying to any company. But I think that there is a tendency to think that if you're applying for an acupuncture job, you're applying to Amazon and you're entitled to, all the benefits that go along with working for a large corporation. There is a little understanding of what it means to be part of a small crew, a small company. So that would be one thing I would do the research on. I think the pay situation is really important to really thoroughly understand. And if I were applying for a job, I might ask peers, I might ask around. I would assume that you would do your research in terms of what profit does a sole prop, somebody who's working alone bring home versus somebody that's working in an office. What's the difference between a contractor and a 1099 and a W-2 employee? Understanding these things is critically important to finding your home, because if somebody makes you an offer and you don't fully understand what the offer is, nobody's going to be happy.
Yeah. I think that's perfect. I mean, I talk to both clinic owners as well as practitioners that are contractors, and this rate conversation. This is so interesting to talk to the clinic owners and be like, come on, like I'm not going to give you 70%, and then to hear the contractors who are like, I damn well work hard and should be making 80%. And the thing is, both sides make sense when you feel the like oomph behind it. But and I don't, I'm going to take sides, because to me one side makes a little bit more sense as the clinic owner. There's a lot of things that aren't seen. So for myself, hearing what you say about doing the research, it's actually understanding what's involved in owning and running a center. It's big stuff, and it's not like, I mean, most clinic owners aren't rolling in the dough. It's not a multi-million-dollar industry. It's something that it's something that a lot of the time it's like the percentage that you're keeping as the clinic owner, it's enough to keep the lights on and also enough to pay you. But that's it. It's not like you're trying to get something more, right? So that research, that really understanding what it's like to own a clinic would be helpful, and all of those little details about, are you going to be a contractor? Boy, that's brilliant. That's great advice. Yeah. And what about the fit?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
The fit, yes. So that's an energetic thing, right? There is a lot of gut that goes there. And part of our interview process at Lokahi is, I'll say to my crew who are helping, I'll say, put the screws on a little bit, push back a little bit. I want to see what happens when you disagree up front with them. And so they find it quite hard to do that. But, we've gotten to a place now where they're able to do that. And that is hugely important, to really, really dig down and make sure that that feedback can be received in a positive way, that it's constructive, that somebody doesn't get defensive, and so through that process you can figure out whether it's a fit or not. It's in your gut primarily this is good, and every time that I have had a slight hesitation, I know that those are the situations that haven't worked out in the long run.
Yeah. I was just reading a book. It's a brilliant book, 15 Commitments of Conscious Leadership. Just a phenomenal book. And one of the things they were talking about is a full body yes, a full body no, and a full body maybe. And like that's so important, on both sides, right? As the clinic owner and as the contractor, it's being in those situations and really tuning in and being like, is this a yes? Like, do I fit here,
Mhm.
or does this person fit here? I mean, at the end of the day,
Mhm.
like you've probably done a million interviews. I've done enough to know that it's pretty easy for people to put on the face and say the things,
Mhm.
and they can do the research, and everything seems perfectly fine. But then there's just this little thing that's like, I
Mhm.
don't know. I don't know if this is a fit. So let's say that you didn't listen to that, right? Like you kind of bypassed the maybe sensation or the no sensation in the body and relied on the brain saying this is a good fit. It's 6 months down the road, they're past probation period, and then it's time. It's the time where it's okay. This isn't working out. How do you go about that process in a kind, compassionate way?
Well, with the understanding that if it's not working for us, it's not working for the employee either. So, um, really coming to the conclusion together. And oftentimes, so we do our check-ins with each employee as a walk. We have a lovely little path
Mm,
next to a stream and we go for a walk. And that happens depending on the needs of the employee every month or every quarter. And that will vary. So it could be a standing quarter, and then that employee needs a little extra more support. So we'll do it for once a month for a little while and check back in. During those times is when if something wasn't working, I would introduce the concept, this is not working. What can we do to change it? And then we would probably set up a follow-up meeting, at which point I would say, this, if it's not working for me and I know it's not working for you,
mhm,
this is our opportunity to call it a day or transition you out. Um, Acupuncturists, we're very intuitive people. We know what's going on. It's never a surprise.
yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's interesting. I actually wanted to talk to you about that as well because I'm not sure what it's like uh, as a rule of thumb necessarily in the States or in California, but certainly where I am and pretty much all across Canada, it's very rare to find an all acupuncture clinic. Most
Hmm.
of the time, it's acupuncturists. We find our homes in other integrative medicine clinics or wellness centers of different sorts, but shockingly rare to have a purely acupuncture clinic. Is that something that's
Hmm.
relatively common?
No,
No, okay, so it's
no.
pretty rare for you too. What's
Yes.
that like? I mean, because let's be honest, I was actually just spending some time yesterday with a couple of acupuncture friends, and there's this non-acupuncturist there, and he made a joke about acupuncturists, and it was like, yeah, you know what, we're all weird. Like, there's something different about us, to dedicate this amount of time to go through. Again, I'm not sure what the education's like in the States, but in Canada, the hell of education, it's hard
Hmm.
to do all of that.
Yeah.
Like to have a group, right? 11 different acupuncturists all in one space. What's that like?
Hmm. Weirdly wonderful, Jess.
Weirdly wonderful.
It's weirdly wonderful. We all have our quirks and we all have our needs and our various diets. A
Oh,
very large
I
fridge
bet.
to accommodate all the said diets. Um, but
Yeah, that makes
But
sense.
it's it's wonderful because
Yeah.
I am a perfectionist, and therefore anything beyond my abilities to lead or to manage is not really on the table. So when we've got acupuncture, I know, right, we've got this scope of practice that's
Mhm.
so broad for one person to do. We can fill out so many aspects of this amazing medicine with specialists, and that
Mhm.
I absolutely love. And the ability to have a clinic where one practitioner is like, says, this is not my bag. I want you to go and see that person for a couple of weeks, check
Mhm.
back in with me after. We'll collaborate on the back end. It's phenomenal, and it's inspiring for them as practitioners as well to work in that environment that's such a collaborative space.
Yeah. Yeah, and to speak the same language too, because as we
Yeah.
know, right, when you're learning acupuncture, you're learning like three different languages simultaneously, learning the language of
Yes.
medicine, the language of Latin, and then the language of Chinese medicine, which all three are challenging. But then when you get into a collaborative system, and then maybe another practitioner, a chiro or potentially a naturopath or some other practitioners, like, hey, let's riff on this client that we're both seeing. What do you think it
Yeah.
is? And you spout off some typical TCM or Chinese medicine diagnosis, and they're like, I don't understand what you're talking
I
So
don't
that
really
must be
know what
really
you're talking
nice.
about.
Yeah, like,
Yes.
I don't get it.
Yes.
Just tell me, like, what's actually wrong with this person. You know, the problem actually is liver cheese technician. Like, that's a no. But to be in a group where everybody gets it and has the same language, that must be quite nice too. Really makes the collaborative care process much easier.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And it does lead to some wonderfully passive aggressive comments like, how's your liver chi doing today? Literally the only group of people that can use
Yeah,
liver chi as a passive aggressive comment.
yeah, totally. That's great. Oh,
Yeah,
we're
no, it
an
works.
interesting sort.
Yes.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, so
So
yeah,
for
it's great.
yourself, what's next? I know you're doing more coaching, right? With wellness center
Hmm.
creators, you're working with more people who are doing what you're doing, right? Is
Hmm.
that sort of the next big project, or you got a couple other things on the go? What's happening?
Well, I think I'm building out the practice a little bit more. We after the pandemic, we the traffic in the Bay Area has got horrific. So we're having some challenges with a couple of practitioners and their ability to be in the clinic for long periods of time. So I'm bringing on a couple of
Hmm.
new acupuncturists. Over the years, just about everybody has said to me, you should build out a second clinical space, and the idea of that overwhelms me, so that's
Hmm.
really not on the table. But I'm loving coaching, Jess. I
Hmm.
absolutely love it.
Yeah.
It's really a space where my creativity gets to shine. This is, in the treatment room, I'm a practitioner, but as you said, there's a very limited amount of energy for that now in my
Hmm.
practice. But when I'm coaching, I feel a different energy. And
Yeah.
right now, it's really fulfilling and it's really inspiring.
Oh, that's amazing, and I get you like that feeling. I actually found in my clinical practice over the years, I started out by treating mostly pretty serious autoimmune conditions, chronic conditions. I did that for like 5 years, and then I slowly graduated or transitioned rather into dealing with anxiety and stress, and I enjoyed that a little bit more. But that transition slowly led me into realizing the part I love most is doing the coaching part. It's working with people who are doing good, but they're aiming for optimal. Like that's my
Mm-hmm.
sweet spot. So I really get the
Uh,
totally different energy and
yeah.
a different way of communicating health and wellness. And I'm curious about this for you when you are working with a business owner and you're having the discussions, maybe it's like what we're having now or other business-based discussions. Do you find your practitioner heart or your practitioner essence kind of comes into your coaching as well, or are they very separate aspects of you?
Hmm. That's a good question. I've never thought about that. I think it's a different aspect of me. I understand the practitioner
Mhm.
aspect, but when the business side comes in, it's a whole different ball game to me.
Mhm.
It's a fiery ball game and an
Yeah, yeah,
exciting ball game where I'm very grounded and quiet and at peace in the treatment room as a practitioner. When we talk business, then I start yammering
yeah.
and get
Yeah, and I think that's a
excited.
super important distinction. Very
Yes.
important. And it's the outcome. Like people are seeking a practitioner. The thing is the problem might be exactly the same, this feeling of stuck, right? But then they book a
Hmm.
session with a practitioner and the energy that they're looking for is somebody to be like slow and still and do
Hmm.
the treatment thing. But then they book a session with you as a coach for the exact same problem. But you need to present that like, let's do this. Like we got this.
Yeah.
Let's like the coach mentality, right? Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly. And yeah, there's a different flow and a different momentum there.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in a couple weeks here, I think it is a couple weeks, maybe three weeks or something like that, maybe a month. I'm not sure, but we're getting awfully close to this point in time where we'll be 5 weeks. 5 weeks. Okay. Where we're both going to meet in person at the Wellness Center Creators first official retreat. And I'm super looking forward to that. You're doing a talk on Teams, correct? Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Super
Wonderful.
excited.
Yeah, that's going to be an amazing experience. So,
Yes.
is there anything else that we missed that you'd really like to talk about or present before we tie a bow on our conversation?
No, I've had an absolutely amazing time. This has been so
That's
much
great.
fun. Thank
It
you.
has been. Yeah, my pleasure. And it's been a joy speaking with you. So, I'm going to leave some contact information for your coaching in the comments, or not the comments, in the show notes. Is there anything else you'd like me to add in there?
I think you have everything, Jess, and then maybe
Wonderful.
we can add a link to the retreat, although I think we're full at this point.
I think we're full, yeah, but maybe a teaser for those who would like to join next year. But yeah.
Yes, yeah. All
Wonderful.
right.
Well, again, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure chatting with you, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in person in 5 weeks.
Thank you. Can't wait, Jess.
Excellent.